Okay, so now this is a video just for the FTCs and the OSMs, just as a bit of a reference point for you to try and help you with knowing when you need to do recounts. Now, we're working a lot in the background at the moment to try and get the recipes to actually speak correctly, to get the wastage fixed, and to also get sales data that pulls into R9. Because without that information, the stock count at the moment is only telling us our total usage. It doesn't tell us what our accounted wastage is, our unaccounted wastage is. It can't give us a theoretical stock count. There's lots of things that we are unable to utilize within the system at the minute, which I'm working on in the background to try and get fixed. But in the meantime, I think it's quite handy to have a bit of a guide in place for you to know when a stock count is high or when it's low, for example, right? So if I click onto the stock reconciliation at this point, when the team members message me to say, right, I've done my stock count, and I come to stock reconciliation, and I press run on the report. So it then comes up with, so this is the number you're looking at, right? So that's saying that during this particular period, I've used £5,800 worth of stock in total, right? So that's a combination of what I've had delivered, any wastage, minus any wastage, minus the closing stock, etc., will give me that £5,842 usage. So what you guys need to do is you need to come through line by line, looking at these two in particular. So this one here, different quantity and different cost. Okay, so that's saying how many actual individual items you've used and what that actual cost is. Okay, so looking at mango bubble tea as an example, it's saying I've used 32 bubble teas in that month's period. Now you'll know roughly if that feels right or wrong. If that was 157, you might go, bloody hell, that's a lot of green tea. I'm not sure that's right. I might need to recount that. Ones that I find that come up quite a lot. So for example, like right here, so we've got crispy onions. You've got a big number there, 1,500. That's the individual packets. So you go, right, 1,500 packets of sushi. If I know that on average I'm making 100 packets of sushi a day, let's say 60 of those are single rolls or crunch rolls, or it might be less than that. Let's call it 40. So I'm doing 40 crunch rolls a day where I'm getting a sachet packet put into it. It's roughly 30 days in a month. That's 1,200 sachet packets. So yeah, I'm probably within a rough kind of window. It might be worth me going back and going, right, I'm probably missing about 300 packets worth of sachets there. But again, this is rough numbers because without the sales data, you're never going to know exactly how much should have been used. Likewise, on your nori sheets, because you're talking about thousands here, you can roughly work that out and go, right, if they're making 200 rolls a day, times by 30, how many rolls of nori should I have used during that time? You can check it through that bit there. To know if you've got a good stock count or not. Now, as I say, this is just a guide. This is not a perfect way of doing it. But until we get the sales data, this is what I would advise. So if you've got a kiosk that's doing, I don't know, let's say 2.5 grand's worth of sales per week, okay? So if it's a 4-week month, they're doing 10 grand a month on their sales. Okay, so I know you track your sales anyway, so you can have a look what during that period that you're doing, how much sales have they made? Now for just cost of food, because obviously this is only food in here, not cost of goods. For cost of food, a good target to try and aim for is about 20% usage. Okay, so what I mean by that is if I've done £10,000 worth of sales, if I've done 20% of that, so I do times 0.2 on a calculator, my stock usage should be about £2,000 worth to do that, okay? That can go up to about 30%. So I'd say anything that sits within 20 to 30% on your cost of food is going to be in a reasonably good place, okay? About where they should be. So that's literally converts into £2,000 to £3,000 if it's that nice easy number of 10 grand. If you're higher than that or lower than those, the odds are there's probably a mistake in there somewhere and you're going to need to go through it a bit in a bit more detail. Now, even if your stock was bang on and it was 2,500, I would still come through each individual line checking, because you might be a case in a situation where you're actually up £2,000 on a particular line and down £3,000 on another line, and then it's balanced you out to look good, but you're actually not. So still always come back in and check, okay? As you're going through, write up a little list for the team that you want to go do recounts on. A way that I used to do this, you don't have to do this, this is just if it's easier for you. I used to press this button at the top and open it up in an Excel document instead. So I'll show you that. Now, the reason I would do it that way is because then I would come onto my line and go, right, meal keys I've used. So I've got usage of 30. Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. I'm happy with that. And then I would, enable editing. I would then delete that line. Then I'll go for the next ones and the next ones go, yeah, that's all fine. Yeah, I'm going to delete those lines. I'm happy with those counts, etc., etc., etc. To the point where I can then turn around to my team afterwards and go, right, once I've gone through my lines. So I'm just doing this quickly, so ignore what I'm doing here for a sec. So I'm just making it up in terms of a recount. So then I can turn around to the staff and go, right, of all of your usage then. So again, I'm just going to make it nice and simple. I'm just going to go down to different quantity and costs. And I'm going to put in some grids here. I can do that. And then I can send that off to my kiosk manager or my team leader and say, right, can you go and recount these lines for me? And then you can just get it entered in here. Long term, once we get the sales inputting into R9, this will become more important because then we'll get so much more value out of a stock count because we'll be able to go after unaccounted waste, accounted waste, theoretical stock closes versus sales. There's so much more capability in the system that we'll be able to get really accurate with our stock counts to the point where we'll be able to get it down to per sheet of nori will be possible. And then this is where the recounts and keeping hold of this document becomes quite good because then it's a way for us to monitor and make sure we have our own compliance as a team as well. But yeah, that's how I would advise doing it. Then obviously the team will go off and get their stock counts. And as I'm sure you already know, you go back and you do your stock count re-enters. And again, just to reiterate, you don't need to do anything different. You just go reopen stock, yes, come to your stock count, input by template, find the template that you want it to be done as, and the stock that you've entered will not have changed. Okay, it makes no difference whether you saved it or how many open times you close it. It won't change until you manually come in and make a change yourself, reclose the stock. This takes ages to do the reclose of stock, doesn't it? Close the stock again. Close stock period. And then, as I say, before going to approve, always do a last run to make sure that the recount has fixed the problem. Assuming it has, you would come back and then you would press approve. As soon as you press approve, that's it. We can't reopen it again. Well, not easily anyway. You won't be able to reopen it again. So make sure you've done all your checks before you do press that final approve. And obviously that is due to be done by 11 a.m. on the 1st of each month. Okay. Once you've done it, it should just default back to a normal stock page that will look like this. And the start dates and end dates up the top here would have changed to the following month. And that's how you know you've been successful with it. If you have closed it and you've made a real boo-boo and we've messed it up, if you drop me a note, I have access to be able to reopen it for you, but I can only do it once. Forth only allow us to actually reopen a stock count once. So just keep that in mind. You can fix it if you've closed before, but if you make another error afterwards, you're kaput. You've got no chance of getting it back. All right. The last bit I want to talk to you through is deliveries when you close a stock, because not in every scenario where you'll have your deliveries will have been delivered before you close your stock, particularly things like uniforms, for example. So when we do try and close the stock, you'll get a warning message like this, and there are pending transactions. So a transaction is your deliveries. Okay. So before I can close my what I should do before I close my stock is move my delivery dates forwards. So for FinSpace, for example, I would come in and go, right, actually, I need to move this out of November on this particular example I've got up here, and I need to move it into December instead so that it doesn't account for itself or think that it needs to be accounted in this month's stock take. Once I've changed that date and I press close again, I won't get that warning message because, as I say, sometimes stock deliveries are going to fall outside of the month that you're working in when you're closing that stock. You don't want to add an Eden farm order to your stock count in January if actually your stock count gets delivered on February the 1st, because it's showing that it will show that you have food in the business that you don't actually have. and that's something called that as a term that's called ghosting stock, and it's quite frowned upon in terms of ghosting stock for those who have worked in bars or pubs and things in previous careers. But yeah, if you need anything, any questions or anything like that, guys, I'm pretty handy when it comes to R9. So please feel free to reach out if you want me to run through anything specifically with you. As I say, I also have full control over the template system. So if it's a case that we want, I don't know, you find there's, like Chris reached out last week about getting ice cubes added. So we got those added to him for him. We can come in and do that. So obviously, if there's an item on there that you can't find or you can't order, or an item that's no longer on our menu and you want me to remove it, just drop me a little note on WhatsApp or on Teams, however you want to communicate, and I can come in and change the templates from there. The reason we bought this template system in is because, as you can see, if I come back to stock count, for example, if we do it the old way where we used to just go input full stock count by supplier, and I put in Eden Farms, wherever they may be. I can't even see them on there. Eden Farm, there it is. When I scroll down to the bottom here, it gives me lines that I might not necessarily have. And when we do B stock counts, there was 777 lines, I think there were. Whereas doing it by template, it gets you down to just what's required in your particular kiosk. So it's 109 lines. So it just keeps things nice and clean and tidy, rather than us getting all of these empty lines that we no longer use anymore. Yeah, that's it, guys. Hope it helped.